To take a look at some player comparisons between young players in the NBA and who would be some former players, or who will be the counterparts, let's start talking about Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is the type of player that has a lot of speed, a lot of moves, and he's very quick with his hands, got good footwork, and does a lot of acrobatic moves. Kyrie Irving is a player that, coming into the league many years back, was compared in many ways to Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson, known for many quick moves, crossover steps, acrobatic moves, is what defined Allen Iverson. If we look at the numbers, points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, steals per game, blocks per game, and turnovers per game, with the exception of points where Allen Iverson was a more prolific scorer, in terms of most of the numbers, they're plus or minus half a point higher or lower. So very similar numbers for these two players. If we look at Kawhi Leonard is what they call a two-way player. A person that when he's playing, he's very smooth on the floor, how he dribbles, how he passes, how he can take control of a game when he needs to. It's not a player that you see him trying very hard. And at the same time, he's a lockdown defender that can get in a player's face and control the scoring. That reminds you of a very young Scottie Pippen. If you remember the game of Scottie Pippen, lockdown defender, very smooth player, bank shot, and someone who didn't look like he was trying very hard, yet he could get it done. Those players compare very, very well. If you look at the numbers shown here in terms of points per game, shooting percentage, the player efficiency rating, the defensive rating, and the defensive win share, very similar numbers and very similar players. If we look at the play of Kristaps Porzingis, who can do turnaround jumpers, post-up moves, he can shoot it from deep three, and he is a threat when not kept guarded, and he can come in and do some putbacks on the floor. So very talented player who would compare today to a young Dirk Nowitzki. If we look at Dirk Nowitzki's game, it was so much different at the time, and there was a big man who could shoot from the outside and be able to make some turnaround shots, and, well, in his case, the flamingo shot, but nonetheless, very, very similar players. If we look at the numbers here in terms of the first or the last 3 years that they were in the league, and the last 3 years that Dirk Nowitzki, or the first 3 years that Nowitzki averaged in his career, in terms of points per game, rebounds per game, field goals made per game, 3 points made per game, and blocks per game, the numbers are extremely similar. Kristaps Porzingis is slightly above Dirk. If we look at the play of Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, he has a style of play that is unlike anyone we've ever seen. A big man of his size, who should normally play center, or in the past would have been assigned to play center, and play with his back to the basket and play in the paint, is someone who can dribble the ball, who can put the ball on the floor, who can drive, actually does Euro steps to get himself all the way to the rim, and usually finish with a slam dunk. Occasionally, you see that if he's got so many defenders that he has no shot, he finds a way to pass the ball and get an assist. So it's very difficult to compare Giannis to a pass player, because that style of play is different. But if we look at a big man who in the past played at least in the paint, and usually would finish with a slam dunk, and usually most of the time, yes, would have his back to the basket, but would have somewhat the most closest style of play, that player would be Shaquille O'Neal. When Shaquille O'Neal came into the league, just as the description of Giannis Antetokounmpo was, it was the type of player of someone of the likes we've never seen, well, the same could be said about the Shaq. When Shaquille O'Neal came into the league, he was just a dominant force in the NBA with his power, style of play, where he would play in the paint, usually with his back to the basket, but a defensive force, a force that would take it all the way to the rim and have enough of a footwork to be able to work his way around the defenders and overpower defenders for slam dunks. That is the closest style of play of a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Shaquille O'Neal basically was so unstoppable during his time that they created the hack-a-Shaq rules, where the only way to stop Shaquille O'Neal, who had, by the way, a shooting percentage that hovered in the 60% mark. For someone who had scored that many points, that was something pretty incredible. So if we compare the numbers, if you look at points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, blocks per game, and field goal percentage, you'll notice that they compare very closely, with Giannis's numbers being slightly higher. Now, keep in mind that these averages are for the two players up to the age of 24. Shaquille O'Neal's game obviously improved over the years, including the field goal percentage that I was referring to earlier. But up until the age of 24, which is the closest comparison we can make, Giannis's numbers are significantly better in many respects, well, not significantly better, but slightly better, with the exception of the assists per game, which were significantly better, and the blocks per game, which the Shaq had the edge. If we look at Joel Embiid had a significant impact when he came into the league by being the type of player that has a combination of footwork, good shooting touch and good hands, good power and good moves. Joel Embiid, again, is one of those players that are hard to compare with some other players in the past. But just looking at some of his signature moves, or some of the ways that he can drive to the basket, get into a putback, or make a certain move to reach the rim, one of those most important aspects is his footwork. And if you look in the history of players that are known for good footwork, who were centers, who else than Hakeem Olajuwon? Hakeem Olajuwon was best known for his footwork and how he was able to get to the basket, work in the lane, get in between the defenders, and score by putting a number of moves. Once Hakeem Olajuwon was asked, how did you develop such great footwork? And his story goes that growing up, his first sport was not actually basketball, it was soccer. And as you all know, soccer is the type of sport where you have to use your legs, you can't use your hands, and you have to develop the type of footwork that Hakeem Olajuwon was great known for, having battles against during the time that he played in his career with some of the great centers in the league like David Robinson and Shaquille O'Neal. Now, if we look at the numbers, in terms of points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, field goal percentage, and player efficiency rating, you can see that the numbers are very similar, with Hakeem having a higher field goal percentage, but Joel Embiid, at least so far in his career, having higher points per game averages and assist averages. Having looked at these 5 NBA stars and their counterparts from the past, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, Kyrie Irving, and Kristaps Porzingis, let me know your comments. Let me know your picks and who would have been closest. Do keep in mind that the players that I picked are all in the Hall of Fame, the ones that I compared against. That was not by accident. That is my way of saying that these 5 players in the future, if they continue to have the careers they've had, will be in the Hall of Fame. This is Hoops Imagined.